Welcome to the Never Good Enough podcast. I'm Elina.
And I'm Sarah, and I'm so excited to be here with you all.
Today, we're going to talk about emotions. What are they? How can we deal with them? Why do we have so much of them, or maybe not at all? And how can we really get a better understanding of what is going on within us and how having a better understanding can really change your life?
Today's topic is really something that I have dear to heart because for the longest time, I spent my life feeling inadequate or there was something wrong with me because of how I could not handle my emotions. And it was just later on in life that I discovered emotions are not there to be handled. They're not there to be contained or just limited or sent away. They're there for a reason. And today we're going to dive into all of this. So if you're listening to this podcast and maybe sometimes you feel frustrated because you're feeling sad, or you're feeling frustrated and angry with yourself because your life should be amazing and you should be so grateful for all the things that you have, and yet there's something that is not quite right. You know, some days you're really feeling moody or sad or sluggish or tired. And maybe there's people out there listening that have these outbursts of anger that they can't control, and that's maybe hurting their relationships that you guys are all having. Or, like me, for the longest time, you're not able to get angry with people. And that's a real issue because you feel like you can't really express what you want, which makes you just go within and want to isolate yourself because you know that you're not able to build some healthy relationships, because relationships also need confrontation and they need honesty and trust. I know that there are so many people out there with social media scrolling and feeling jealous about the things that they're seeing, feeling this fear of missing out. So emotions are there, they're real, they're causing so-called problems. And I feel so honored and blessed to be here today with Alina to build up this conversation so that we can a bit debunk these myths that emotions are something that we should just control, destroy, limit, avoid, and instead share what is our own experience with shaping emotions as if they're this clay that we can transform in beautiful objects because they're something that is alive in us and they're a compass of how alive we are. I know so many people that try to numb their emotions using food or alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, you name it. And what this does is create even more fear of being alive and of feeling the emotions because the body says, oh my gosh, if this person keeps suppressing emotions, it really means that they're not able to feel them. And it's like, no, emotions are something that gives us life and makes us feel alive, even in the negative sense. And I've heard many stories of people that told me, finally I've cried and that was such a liberation. I could feel my sadness. I could make other people see it and be absolutely standing in my own power. It was amazing. And so that's what we really would like to achieve today, is to talk about emotions and normalize them.
Yeah, I think for me personally, having a lot of emotions, and I always have had a lot of emotions, it has given me so much freedom to allow myself to have them, to feel them, to give them space, to not feel like I just had to fix them or that somehow there was something wrong with me, that I was not good enough because I was experiencing something or reacting in a way that maybe others around me weren't, or maybe I was the only one feeling afraid or angry or whatever. And I think, of course, it is really nice if we can have a shared experience of emotion. But I think it is really helpful to also know we all have these different experiences for different reasons. And that is because emotions are pretty complex. And also to really understand that giving them space is probably the best thing we can do. Like, it can feel so scary, right? It can feel really, the more you suppress them, right? They become these dragons that are in the dark that you don't want to even look at. But I think the more we can embrace that we are all different, we have different experiences, and by actually sharing them and talking about them and receiving understanding and compassion, we can heal so much of our personal struggles because we are not alone. And I think even though we have like all these very different experiences in life in general, the one thing we always have in common are these different emotions. It's like a whole range of emotions. But even though maybe you are not experiencing the same thing, you do know what it's like to feel sad or feel jealous or feel frustrated or feel angry or feel hopeless or feel in awe or inspired and enjoy, you know? So I think it is beautiful if we can allow our emotions to be there more. And I would love to understand a bit deeper what emotions really are. Where do they come from? Where does our relationship with emotions come from? Because I feel like, for example, you have a very different relationship, Sarah, than I have with emotions. And so, where is that formed? How does it influence our daily choices? Can you tell us more about emotions and what to do with them?
I would love to. And it's something that really changed my life when I learned about this about 9 to 10 years ago. I was just learning more about the subconscious mind, and I came across this rule of the mind, which says that in a battle between logic and emotion, emotion always wins. And when I read it, I was like so relieved. And I thought to myself, this is deeply liberating, and this makes a lot of sense. There are some things that when you hear them out, your whole body says, oh my God, yes, this must be true, because now finally I have all these light bulb moments and these clicks. And I had gone through a period in my life where I had these very strong just outbursts of emotion that would make me do things that my logic mind didn't want me to do. And it all played out with food. But it can play out with a lot of things for different people. So I don't want to really focus on the food aspect today, but I want to focus on the force of these emotions. And the reason why they are so powerful is that they're coming from our subconscious mind, which is designed to keep us alive. So our emotions are those transmitters that kind of communicate between our subconscious mind and our conscious mind, and are trying to make sure we are protected, we're safe, we're loved, we are accepted, we belong. These are all our basic needs. And a really cool way to understand immediately what I'm saying is to think about when sometimes some people master this or have a different disposition, but a lot of people still might feel very angry when they're hungry. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but
Yes, angry. I get it very quickly, actually. Yes.
too. And it's either I'm really angry, now it's a bit better, but I would get really tired when I'm hungry. Like, I can't do anything. And it's my body protecting me, because my body is saying, oh, you need to get food. You're not getting food and you're not remembering that it's time to eat. Let me send you a strong signal. I'm going to send you a lot of tiredness, or I'm going to send you anger, so that you look within and you say, I'm hungry. I want food now and I need to act upon it. Now, of course, as we mature in life, we have more of a hold on our emotions, which is not a negative thing per se. However, it needs to be kept in balance. So to be able to completely ignore or suppress emotions is not healthy, because imagine there's a red light saying your attention is needed because your body needs this. It's not like somebody runs to you and says, I have a super urgent message for you. You say, no, not now. You can say it for like 2 minutes or maybe 2 hours, because really you have another emergency going on at the moment. But then you will have to listen to that person. And it's the same with emotions. And then it could be that that person tells you the super urgent message was that you need to eat a plate of pasta right now. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to eat the plate of pasta, but don't worry, it's coming in 5 minutes. And that's what an adult does, what a child cannot do. The child just cries. And there's no saying to the child, you're going to eat it in 5 minutes, so stop crying. So as an adult, of course, we gain a lot more, let's say, space around our emotions, where our logic mind comes in and we're able to talk to them, and we're able also to shape them to some extent. But we need to remember that emotions are sacred and they need to be there, all of them. Also the positive ones. I feel sometimes we dismiss them, and this happened to me for a long time. Maybe some days I would be truly super happy and people would ask me how you're doing, and I would say, yeah, I'm okay, because I didn't want them to be jealous. Crazy. And I was downplaying my happiness, and my brain was listening. So the moment I said, I'm okay, my brain went, oh, she's okay. So she's not super happy. Ah, shut down that joy. She doesn't need it. No, emotions that are positive need to be exchanged and celebrated. It's amazing to feel grateful and it's amazing to feel happy. And I would just want to add, it's also maybe not the best idea to force it. I know so many people that tell me, I need to feel more grateful. I want to practice gratitude. And they're there like, now I'm going to feel grateful. I'm going to make myself feel grateful. I do see the importance of feeling grateful, but it's so much better when it just comes and you accept it and you celebrate it for something that is so fresh and unique in your life. So, going back to your question, to recap everything, there's the subconscious mind, which is this part of us that has always been there and that has always made sure that we were surviving. The subconscious creates some thoughts, thoughts that come from the subconscious mind are usually very basic thoughts like, I need shelter, I need food, I need to belong. And when these thoughts are challenged, for example, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'm not going to eat, maybe I'm not going to be loved, maybe I'm not good enough, then I'm going to get an emotion. And if I'm telling myself all the time, I'm not good enough, I'm different, maybe the emotion is shame, maybe it's guilt, maybe it's fear.
And I just wanted to come back to this point where you were saying that it wasn't a great idea to force positive emotions, which is something I definitely experience where I want to feel really happy or fulfilled. And I wake up and I feel good, but also kind of neutral, perhaps, which is actually a great place to be. I think it's one of the things I learned on this personal healing journey is to be more okay with being content versus this kind of unrealistic idea that you all of the time have to feel like abundantly happy, which of course happens. And there, I have a lot of days and moments, and I do a lot of beautiful things that make me feel that way. But that it's very unrealistic to think that that's just going to be your natural state the whole day, every day. And I think, especially if you are trying to feel really happy, but maybe there's something else going on underneath the surface or something needs attention, trying to force yourself to feel differently than you feel is actually going to backfire. Usually, you're going to start to feel worse, right? Because you're going to be like, okay, but why am I not feeling happy? Maybe you're even going to look for reasons that weren't necessarily the case, or like the reason you were feeling just neutral or not like amazingly happy. It's such a complex process. And I think it's also really connected to our needs. Maybe you can share a little bit more about that.
For sure. Behind every emotion, there is a need that is either met or unmet. When the needs are met, you'll get a lot of the positive emotions. When the need is unmet, then you'll get the ones that we label as negative emotions. But if you think about it, I would probably suggest that we label them as crucial emotions, as essential emotions, because without those, we're not able to recognize that we have an unmet need. And just as an unmet need for food in the long term, that is like severely going to impact our well being, whether it's physical or it's mental. So every time that we feel, for example, angry, and I know a lot of people have a big anger issue, it could be that they never have an essential need, such as the one of being heard or the one of feeling safe, met. So a lot of time, this anger comes from a deep fear of this need, or also combination of needs that are not met. And I think it's not random that people who get angry tend to raise their voice and shout because they might have a need to be heard that is not met. And so they're like over engaging that part to make sure everybody is bringing their attention towards them. And then they do have all that attention, maybe sometimes even like that astonishment of people just looking at them like, what is happening? But then their need is met. And you might notice that the anger goes down and that they calm themselves. And suddenly there are these like liberated people that have finally had their outburst and they go back to being totally happy. And I experienced this with my father. He would get very angry. And as a child, that was super confusing. Also, because my mom was at the opposite pole where she had literally a fear of emotions being displayed so much. And so as a child, I was like, okay, I observe my dad doing this, getting extremely angry. What have I done wrong? I'm probably the cause of his anger, inadequacy being built inside of me, as inside of a lot of kids when their parents are very angry a lot of the time. And then on the other side, I had my mom, that if I was the one getting angry or I was the one having an outburst of emotion, she would be like lying in her bed, closing herself up in her room and being like, I can't deal with you. Like, your outburst of emotion makes me feel so sad. She always used the term sad. And I was like, oh my gosh. So whatever I do has such an impact on other people. And I think that's what scares us a lot around our emotions and why we suppress them, is because we feel they're weapons against other people or they're weapons against ourselves. So it's either I make myself look vulnerable by showing my emotions, or I hurt someone, or I make sure that I'm excluded, or I'm never going to find love because I'm angry, because I'm sad, because I display my emotions. And that's so sad that we feel so, it's one of the bad ways that we feel entangled with others. There's many other positive ways to see this entanglement, but we feel like we're the cause or the creator of somebody else's happiness or sadness, which we really are not. And every time there's the healing process around emotions that I have with my clients, there's always this understanding that we are our own bubble, our own planet, or our own world. And what is happening here cannot cause another world to be happy or sad. That's just an illusion that we are in, where I feel like if I do this or if I say this, then you're going to be happy or then you're going to be sad. But I forget that there is still a filter that you have where you can be happy because of something I say, or be sad because of something I say, for something that is entirely your doing and not my doing. Of course, I find it very flexible and very gray when it comes to human interactions, because we're not little robots that are never affected by what comes from outside. But it is very cool to understand that we can get to a state by just exploring, evolving, however we want to call it, where we do have a lot more filter on how we feel, and it's less influenced by what we hear, what is sent to us. And yeah, so our happiness is more in our own hands and less in everybody else's.
I think when we're talking about creating space for our emotions, it can feel very scary to know what to do with them. At least this is something I hear a lot from my clients, and something I've definitely experienced myself. Is like this idea that if I would fully feel things, it it would never end. If I would actually start crying or let the emotion fully in, what do I actually do with them? I think maybe you can speak a bit more about that, but I think it's such an interesting place to be in, where we know maybe we should allow ourselves to feel more, but we're scared of it. Or maybe for a lot of people, they don't even really know how to let themselves feel, because we're so in our heads about our emotions. I think very often we're maybe thinking about feeling instead of actually feeling it in the body. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think you already touched on so many points. I'm going to just go a bit deeper. What you were saying about we have a very mental way of feeling emotions and a very not physical one, that would be my first advice. What I would give my previous self if I were to go back is to tell Sarah, you can really allow yourself to feel the emotion. It's not going to ruin your body. It's not going to make you weak. It's not going to make other people scared. And of course, it's at first it's nice maybe to feel it in your own space where you're maybe alone. That's fine. Or to let yourself really cry that sadness out is so healing, so beautiful, so liberating. And it really brings you in touch with being alive. And also, when experiencing grief, for example, I had an instance where I experienced grief together with other people around me pretty recently. And I could see that the flip side of that was such a deep sense of I am alive that was literally like baffling. And it comes with every emotion. So I guess the first thing to realize, and people can realize it whilst we're speaking, is that emotions are a gift that we do ourselves, even the negative ones, maybe especially the negative ones, because with the positive ones, of course, we can allow them even more. We can try not to rely upon them. As you said, that neutral state is amazing. We don't always need to be up here. Also, because then when we descend down into that beautiful neutral, it will still feel like a descent. So to be in that neutral is just so stable, so grounding. Something I would tell people and I would tell myself to allow the emotion to come, to live through it with a lot of curiosity of how does it feel to be sad as a human? Ah, it feels like this. How alive does this emotion make me feel? Intensely alive to the point where I'm a bit uncomfortable with how intense things are. And then, very important, let's notice how the emotion makes us feel at the end. So when it's practically gone and we feel like life is so intense, maybe the colors, maybe the sounds, maybe the things other people are telling us, maybe we're so relieved that this big emotion is gone, this wave is past, that we actually feel a lot of gratitude and joy. A silly example is when I feel a lot of pain because I'm having my period or something else is happening. Maybe I'm having a fever, but I'm in physical pain. And then this emotion goes away. Life becomes super amazing in that amount of time.
Yeah, I think that's a good one to point out. And also, I think I've heard that emotions, like, if you would distill it down and put the thoughts about the emotion aside, that the emotion itself, if you would like fully embrace it, that it's only about 90 seconds, and that it's like, there are people who say like emotion is like energy in motion. And I feel like putting those two things together, it's so soothing to hear that if you would like fully allow yourself to feel, even though it can reach like a really intense level, that it will like naturally actually subside. While if you are really like pushing against it, and especially I think, for example, with sadness, if you keep holding back the tears, you'll maybe be like very sad and teary for like hours, right? And like stay in this state of also where your nervous system is like unsettled. While if you would actually just cry out loud as like a toddler, then you can feel how it's like regulating and you can feel how it actually becomes a bit less. And I also wanted to touch upon something else you were saying about how in our society we have to learn that we shouldn't feel these negative, or how you were beautifully saying, like essential emotions. So that, and I think I've experienced this myself, where if I would not be okay, and I would actually share that with people, right? Because usually you have these interactions like, oh, how are you? And people are like, okay, yeah, good, fine. If I would be like, yeah, I do not feel okay. I've not felt okay for a couple of days or weeks, and I'm really struggling. People cannot really receive it. There's just such like a societal block of not being able to hold other people's emotions. And I think, especially as a coach or as a therapist guiding people, it's such an essential thing to be able to hold your own emotions and be able to process them and give them space. Because I think from that place, you're also able to hold other people's pain and their emotions, and there's like space for it because you don't feel uncomfortable with emotions in general anymore. While if I was sharing, like, I do not feel okay, I'm having these emotions, people generally who have not like done maybe the inner work to be with their own emotions would just like instantly go into fixing mode, like present all sorts of solutions to why I'm gonna be okay, everything is going to be okay. Like basically you cannot be not okay right now. Like we have to delete this whole situation for you right now because I'm uncomfortable with your emotions because I'm uncomfortable with my own. And I think it's so healing to do this work for ourselves, but therefore also for others, being able to hold space and see that we can be in this human experience together. And I think that will just create so much more freedom for everybody.
I love that. And it makes me think that through emotion, we can actually bond so deeply with people that we know nothing about. They live kilometers away in the other side of the planet. But if they tell us, like, I'm feeling jealous or I'm feeling so grateful and in peace, we're like, yeah, I know exactly how this person is feeling. Like, we really share these building blocks. And when we allow ourselves to talk about it, as you were saying, it can create such a deep connection, even when you're going out and you're meeting people and you're dating people. I was looking also, there's now some reality shows where they show like how people match. It's always around emotions. Maybe they both were super in love with their grandmother that passed away. They shared that love and grief. It's a match. Like, they really understand each other. And yeah.
Beautiful. So, how would you advise people to start this journey, or what can we do with emotions? Because I think we feel so many different things on a day, and you definitely help guide people through understanding like the deeper reasons behind some of these emotions. I think sometimes maybe we have a better relationship with sadness. Like I, for example, can definitely cry really easily and I can let myself feel sadness. But anger, for example, I had a really hard time connecting with that. I think there's a lot of programming, especially towards women, to be like a good girl and to not be a bitch, right, in any way. So anger, of course, would create maybe that like fiery energy that we're not programmed to have. We should not express it in any way. We should hide that part of ourselves. And I think the same is true for men, right? Where men shouldn't cry. I don't even know why, but then apparently that's better. And they're like tough. And I think all of us have these different kinds of relationship with specific emotions where I've also experienced that only after like really crying it out, my anger can really come up. While for men, I've seen going to retreats or places where we're really allowed to and invited to express our emotions like fully, it's actually often for men or people who've really suppressed their connection with sadness is that they first need to get really angry to fully be able to create this space for the tears or for the sadness. But like, how can we start to have a different relationship with our emotions, you would say?
I think there's a surface level answer and a deeper answer. The surface level we already touched a bit upon. It's letting the person feel the feeling. And it can also happen in a therapy session where I'm literally putting them in a scenario where they have to confront the feeling. And that already is so healing and liberated for people that maybe just start grieving somebody that passed 10 years ago in the moment. So it's never too late to feel the feelings. Your body will bring them up when you feel there's the right moment. And on a deeper level, after we've done that, after there's already a bit of more familiarity, as you say, with some entry level emotions that are safe to feel, like gratitude or sadness, then we can go to the programming of, why do I feel like I can't feel this emotion here? Or why is it so difficult for me to feel jealousy or shame? Like, why do I have this big resistance? And there's always a programming behind it. And because if you think about a little child that comes into the planet, the child is not feeling ashamed because he has just cried for 5 minutes because he was hungry. Absolutely not. It's society, our parents, the way that things work in the world that teach us that there are some emotions that we should feel guilty for feeling. We have a lot of shame and a lot of judgment in our world. And I don't say this to disempower people, but to make people open their eyes and realize it, because the moment we realize it, we can liberate ourselves from it. So I'm going to repeat that there is a lot of judgment and of shame around feeling emotions. And when we take that judgment, that shame away, and we just deal with the pure programming of, I have this belief that if I cry, I'm a man. If I cry, I'm not a man anymore. I lose all my masculinity, all my identity, all the trust that I want others to put in me. It's all lost the moment that I start crying. This could be a limiting belief. Let's use a lady's example. I've been told that I really need to be grateful and happy because of everything that people do around me, and I don't deserve to express my own opinion. And so this type of programming causes in a girl to bottle anger, to not allow herself to express it, because the belief is the day I get angry, everybody leaves and I'm alone and I'm unloved and I'm an outcast. So we all have some sort of programming. It's inevitable. But as adults, we can maybe, if we feel like it, go and check what kind of programming do I have? And usually people want to do this because they're experiencing an issue in their life, like they're feeling extremely anxious or extremely sad and depressed. And then they go check out the programming. But you don't need to be experiencing something intense to just have this curious mindset. You don't even need a therapist per se to do it, to just wonder with yourself, what do I believe about anger? What do I believe about gratitude? What do I believe about sadness? And then go deeper and be like, okay, where might this come from? Why did I start thinking that if I cry, I'm not a man anymore? Ah, my dad said that, or my granddad said that. And then you deconstruct where something comes from. And now that you've deconstructed it, you can choose, do I put it back in place exactly how it was, or do I shift something based on the person I'm now?
Yeah, I think it's so healing to even get a better understanding of where things come from. My experience, sometimes even just seeing how it has been just programmed into me is already freeing enough. And I think that is just so powerful and therefore such a motivation to dig a bit deeper yourself and also to have compassion for whatever it is you have experienced and to understand we all have very different programming. Like for me, for example, I've always had a lot of emotional support as a kid. So in my more like when I got older and I was more on my own and I needed to deal with my emotions, I was looking around like, hello, who is going to emotionally support me and like hold my hand through this? So for me personally, it has been a journey to have a bit more of that like logical, loving part of myself regulate those like sometimes really big emotions because I could really feel that little kid or that little girl who had like this overwhelming emotions about maybe not getting the pasta right in your example. And that would be about like all sorts of things in life. And I would really have to learn to calm myself down and also see that not everything you're thinking and feeling is necessarily the truth in the moment. I think that was for me something that also scared me about emotions because of maybe the negative thoughts that came with that. And this idea that maybe you get like a bad work email or whatever, and you're just like so angry. You're like, I'm never going to do this again. Even though, of course, that's just like in the emotion. I think that was such an important part for me to understand that you can have these emotions, you can feel these things, you can think all these things. But once you're like out of it, you can make your choices and be more conscious about things. Of course, you can learn from what has happened and how you can maybe interact differently or set certain boundaries. But I think we all have such a different relationship. And I think you had maybe the opposite journey of you can share about it yourself, but like allowing emotions more.
Exactly. I felt like I didn't have that figure that would hold my hand and bring me through the emotion, which made me for a long time want to avoid feeling strong emotions because I felt I wasn't capable to deal with them. But then, of course, the emotions were coming, and I was finding some way, sometimes very unhealthy ways to cope with emotions. And in the positive side, for people that had a bit of a similar experience where their parents weren't really there when they were having some strong emotions. The positive is that we've learned to regulate them ourselves and we don't expect anybody to come. Tiny disclaimer there. It might also be why you're isolating yourself a lot when you're feeling strong emotions. And for a partner or somebody very close to you can be a bit frustrating. Like when I'm very angry with my boyfriend, I tend to, now I don't do it anymore because I've learned that it's really not something nice for him, but I would just leave the house and go for a walk because I needed to be alone when I was feeling that emotion, because I felt I wasn't safe to be with the emotion and with somebody else. It like felt so overwhelming. I was like, let me deal with myself alone and then I'll come back to you and I promise you I'm going to be another person. He's like, but I don't like it that you just need to storm off when you're having an emotion, it's okay, you can have it here. And it's, I think, very helpful. Also, if you have a partner that is like me and just abandons you in the middle of a fight, to with time construct a kind of relationship with where everything is accepted and your home is literally a safe space where you can be a human with all the emotions involved.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I think it's also really interesting how sometimes maybe if you're feeling really frustrated, that's not actually what is happening, right? Like, I think it's really nice to get curious about what you're truly feeling because sometimes there are like different layers of emotions or feelings or needs, as you were saying, behind it. And I think it can be so helpful, right? I think this is another really motivating thing to actually do face your emotions is that you can learn so much about what you truly need, what you want, what you desire. And actually go after that or communicate it. If you don't really understand yourself, like how can you expect others to understand and to provide and to be there for you, right? So I think sometimes we can be disappointed in maybe not having what we want or not getting what we want. But if we don't know it, like fully connect with ourselves, it's really hard to create those things. So I think it's such a self loving thing to create the space for yourself to explore your own emotional landscape, to understand what is going on. And I share this sometimes with my clients is this idea of inviting your emotions as if they're like little characters in like a theater play and you just put them all around your table. They all have their own place and to have this like really open, non-judgmental discussion of, oh, hello, sadness. How are you doing? Do you have any messages for me? How have I been relating to you? Is there anything we need to talk about? And hello, anger. Like, anything you want to share? Sorry for repressing you for 30 years, having these conversations and therefore really creating a bit of space, but also making it playful to have these different conversations and to really listen without judgment and maybe even looking up like the wheel of emotion or just there are a lot of different places where you can find like different kinds of emotions. I think we're used to we know jealousy, we know sadness, we know anger, we know feeling happy, but there are all these like different kind of flavors of anger or sadness, and to have these more specific words can really help in getting a better understanding of yourself and to maybe journal a bit about it. And you don't have to actually know what you're going to write, but to just start writing for maybe 10 minutes. You can even set a timer and to really like just write what you're feeling or what you're thinking. Even if you're like, I don't know what to write, I hate sadness, to just start there and to just keep writing about how you don't know what to say. And I think that can be a really practical way to start to get in touch with your own emotions a bit more, because I know that it can feel really difficult to, after hearing a conversation like this, be like, okay, so where do I start? It's a vague, elusive thing. These emotions sometimes are very clear, but sometimes it's also like this whole soup or this whole mix inside of you. And you can't figure it all out in your head, you know? So I think it is really nice to get it out on paper, or of course, like come talk to one of us. You can schedule like a little meeting or talk to a friend or go for a walk and do not do anything else than just like trying to be with yourself. And yeah, to really create some space to be with yourself, but also to be with your body and really allow these things to be a physical sensation as well. Maybe even tuning in a little bit, like mindfully. Okay, where am I feeling this feeling? Is it in my chest? Is it in my throat? Am I just generally feeling really tense? I think these can be really practical ways to start to tune into yourself a bit more while having a lot of compassion for whatever you find.
I love that. I want to validate what you were saying. If you feel like you're in a soup of emotions and you want a hand, we always offer a 15-minute free call with us. The link is always in the description of our episodes. And we're super happy to share that time with you to help you maybe get a head start, because we understand that there is still a bit of a bridge, a gap between the episode and maybe your life. And you want to probably get more personal, or you have something to share with us. So we're happy to do that with you.
Yeah, we would love to connect with you and really offer you more guidance. Like, depending on where you are, sometimes the best thing to do really is to ask for help. And sometimes this episode and exploring it yourself is good enough and is like a good first step. But if you're truly like struggling, I would really recommend asking for help. I think for me, my biggest growth has been in investing in like other people who were just a little bit ahead or had like wisdom I had yet to learn. And I feel like sometimes we really have to, we feel like we have to do it ourselves, or if we have this like mental understanding of things, we feel like we have to figure it out ourselves. But there is a lot of healing and learning that takes place with other people who can challenge you, ask you questions, and hold space. So, yeah, what are we going to talk about next?
We're going to single out one of the emotions that we spoke about today, which we haven't purposely spoken about a lot about, which is anxiety. And we're going to combine that with speaking about overthinking, as the two things very often come together in a little, very nice package.
It is a very challenging thing that we both have a lot of experience with, both personally and also with guiding people to free themselves from this whole pattern, because it is a whole package that is very interconnected, your mind and your body kind of playing something out that of course is very unpleasant and can be a huge struggle and have a big impact on your whole life, your whole physical and mental well-being. So we're going to dive into that more. We're also going to touch upon panic attacks, which is very interlinked with anxiety, and how to regulate your emotions in this way and to have a better understanding of what is going on when you're truly struggling.
I can't wait to meet you there.
See you next time. And also, of course, if you feel this is helpful, you've got some insights out of it, please share with us if there's like anything specific that was like eye opening for you, or this aha moment, or anything that you were like, I'm sorry, I really don't understand what you're talking about here. Can you please explain better? Like, we really want this to be an open conversation. So, yeah, let us know, connect maybe with us on Instagram or send us a message. And yeah, we'll talk more next time.
We're called Never Good Enough, with a never between parentheses if you want to find us on Instagram. And we're also on other social medias.
Thank you, and see you next time.